have, aside from the plum jam that my aunt made, I have a 1/4 cup of chicken broth mixed in with about a teaspoon of cornstarch. I have about 1/3 of a portabella mushroom chopped into chunks, and I have a couple oyster mushrooms chopped into chunks. I have 2 of those darling little tiny sweet peppers chopped into chunks. I have some jalapenos from my garden chopped into chunks. If you remember, they don't really have much spice to them, so it's basically just like regular old pepper. I have 1 rib of celery. I chopped it a little bit on the bias in longer pieces so that there's less stringage. And then I have here about a 1/4 of a large onion just chopped into big spears. I also have about probably 4 ounces, not sure, of pork shoulder sliced into thin strips. I have about maybe a tablespoon or 2 of fresh peeled ginger that I've sliced into very thin matchsticks, and 1 clove of pulverized garlic, as well as about a tablespoon of fresh minced cilantro. I also have some leftover cooked white rice, which I'm going to put in the microwave to reheat right now. I've already had this wok with 2 teaspoons of grapeseed oil heating on very high heat while I was doing all that talking, and a little bit before I turned the camera on, so it's almost ready. You want to see the faint wisps of smoke coming up. If it were midday, I would already be making my cup of tea right now as well to go with it, but it's evening, so caffeine overload, and I'll just drink water. Alright, it's ready. First goes in the pork. This cooks ridiculously quickly. In with the onions and the mushrooms. There's the rice. The pork is almost cooked through. Add the rest of the vegetables. After that's gone for a minute or 2, I'm going to add the garlic and the ginger. Ginger and plums are natural allies. So I think the ginger is pretty crucial in this dish. And I left it in big spears so that you'd really be able to taste it. A little soy sauce. Since my jalapenos are weak, red pepper flakes. And now some of this magic elixir. I'd say probably about a 1/4 cup. You want a nice hefty amount of it. Usually when I make a Chinese stir-fry, I add a sweet and sour component, but this plum stuff is already sweet and sour, so we don't have to add any sugar or any vinegar to this dish. Don't let it get too cold. As you continue to add more cold things in here, it can cool down the heat. So at this point, I really blast the heat. Moisture is your enemy. And the more moisture that's in the pan, the longer we're going to have to cook it, and the more color these vegetables are going to lose. So we want to blast it as quickly as possible. Okay, about 30 seconds later, it looks like it's really going to explode. Let's remove it briefly from the heat, because we don't want to make dumplings. Really reincorporate that slurry and vigorously stir it in. Back on the heat. And it should thicken pretty much instantly. At this point, I turn off the heat, remove it, toss in that cilantro, just to incorporate. We don't want to cook it. Get my rice, and just put it on the side / on top of your rice. And behold, it's plummy, very quick to prepare goodness. So there you have it. It came together in a blink of an eye. Except for all that stuff I did off camera to prep for it. Only one thing remains now. Dive in. That really is so good. The pork and plum are really good friends too.